All right, looks like it's time to start the show here. Thanks everyone for joining us. And Susanna, I've got you on chat. You can let me know if there's any problems with sound or with my slides. So thanks for attending our session. As you can see, it's called One Startup from One ERP from Startup to Enterprise. My name is Paul Caron. I'm the CEO of Caron Business Solutions. We are an Acumatica business partner. We've been in business for 25 years. I'm located in Vancouver, and I have team members in Alberta, in Toronto, in Lima, Peru, and we work with consultants in Brazil, and we have clients all over the world. So thank you for joining this session. I'm just going to kill my camera because it's a little irritating to see my face on the screen, and I will go from there. All right, so today I want to start with a bold assumption, and I'm going to follow that bold assumption with some shocking statistics, and hopefully I'll lead us all together to a very, very obvious conclusion. So that's my accountant's graphical extent of my knowledge here. Let's move on to the presentation. So what's the bold assumption? Okay, the bold assumption is that businesses want to grow. I mean, if you look at mission statements from companies all over the world, particularly North America, you'll see innovation and growth, sustainable growth, rapid growth of resources. It's a goal that is very common to businesses, and the reasons are pretty clear. And you'll see some of these reasons on the screen here, like I want to dominate the market, or I want to be able to have a greater buying power. I want to get the best people on our team. So these are all very, very, good goals. They're logical goals. And then together with that, we also kind of have some of the ego goals in mind. We want to be the top of the charts. We want to be superstars. And here's a couple of examples of people who have done that. So let's look at some statistics now. So, for small businesses, when you're starting, the thought of software to run your business beyond Excel is, typically not top of mind. According to research.com, 99.9% of all businesses in North America are small, and only 56% of them have accounting software. But as people operate the business, you start to get some signs that you have to do something. And it's like the old sailing saying, when the storm is coming up, the best time to take the sails down is when you first think about it. So what are those things that come up that tell us, hey, it's time to get some back-end software going for our business? Well, you start to see some errors in a manual process. You're making mistakes that are costing you money. You're growing too fast, and you're starting to get this sense that you're losing control of things. You need more access to more information. You just can't operate without better information. And everything that you're doing is starting to take too long now. You're not keeping up. And one of the biggest reasons that companies say, look, I need to get something going in the back office here, is you get a call from a certain government department and they want to come and audit your books. So there's some really good reasons, some statistics as to, how few of us are actually doing things. But what do we do when we get this idea? We're a small business. How do we get a system going? Well, plan A is what most people do. You go online, you find an entry-level accounting software package, and you sign up. And the theory is that when we grow, we're going to get a real ERP. But we don't need it now. And then when we become huge, when we're billionaires, we're going to move to SAP, or we're going to move to Oracle, because that's just so cool to move there. And we're going to be big enough to be able to afford it. But there's problems with this plan, okay? People who have done data conversions don't really say, gee, I'd love to do another one of those. Data conversions are disruptive, they're expensive. If you've outgrown your entry-level accounting system, or if you're at the top end and you're now looking at having to move to SAP, you're going to spend a lot of money. It's normal for small businesses to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a conversion. 3 to 4 months of time is not uncommon. So they become very disruptive and very expensive. And all of the time that you're used to spend servicing your customers and doing the work that you do to generate revenue is now taken up from this nasty little conversion. And it's just not a lot of fun. So revenue starts to drop. Thirdly, learning brand new software is difficult. I mean, it's different than what you're doing now. So everything's changed. Sometimes it's illogical. You quite often hear, gee, that's not how we do it on our old system, but you're moving off your old system. So it's difficult. And in every single case, there's always someone that says, I don't like this. I'm not going to change. I don't like this way of doing it. They push back. When you get staff resistance, everything takes longer. It's more expensive. All of these problems come into the world. So it's really, really tough to change. And it kind of puts a wrench into the ideal world plan. So here's the ideal world, plan A. Revenue is going to increase over time. Costs are going to be well under control, and we're going to be making billions of dollars really, really soon. But what happens when you throw conversions into the mix? I mean, this is obviously a bit of an exaggeration here, but if we have to convert in year 3 because we've outgrown our entry-level accounting software, revenue is going to come down. Our costs are going to go way up, and this profit that we had suddenly becomes a loss. And if we're really successful and in 5 years we're moving up to SAP, same thing happens. Year 5, you have another expensive data conversion. So my first argument here is that it's perfectly legitimate to have a healthy fear of data conversions. And while we're speaking about fear, if you bear with me, I'm just taking a little detour here. One of the phobias are really the most common fear, the most common anxiety disorder. So what are the greatest phobias in the world, and why do we want to minimize them? A little bit of a trivia here. Aquaphobia, 14% of people, according to a recent survey, fear bodies of water. Interesting. Trypanophobia, hard one to say. 18% of us hate medical procedures. And you've all heard of arachnophobia, but there's other phobias about animals. They're called zoophobias. About 22% of the population is affected by that. Fear of heights, acrophobia, about a quarter of us. I probably count myself in there. I'm not happy with heights for sure. Maybe that's why I was born to a family of short people. And the number one phobia that we all know about is glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. So these are phobias that are common. We've all heard this before, and it's really a good goal to try to minimize them. But I want to actually encourage you to learn a new phobia and to maximize it. And that's convertophobia, a perfectly legitimate fear of data conversions as your company grows. Avoid them like the plague. So if we're going to have a different plan, we have to avoid data conversions. Okay, so plan A. We talked about data conversions. I want to talk about another one, which is functionality. Entry-level software is called entry-level because it's entry-level. That means it's not sophisticated. That also means that you quickly outgrow it. And because we know we want to avoid all kinds of conversions, you're going to live with really poor functionality for a very long time. So what happens there is you get excess work, you have a slow down the operations, and you can basically slow your growth. Okay. So the solution to the problem is really what I'm talking about with the title of this presentation, getting the right ERP system in at startup and staying with it as you grow to enterprise. And as luck would have it, what a coincidence, on an Acumatica conference, the solution is Acumatica. So how does Acumatica help us with this? Well, they've designed the software for different sizes of companies in what I call levels. And there's 4 levels. So the essentials level gives you up to 10 named users. It has advanced functionality, but there's limitations on that. That's where we should start. The other levels, the select level, there's more robust functionality. And now we're moving off this user limitation. The essentials is the only level that has a user limitation. So there's no limit, but it's typically suited for organizations of about 50 employees. And there's a transaction limitation on this one. Prime, this is all the bells and whistles. This is the big kahuna, if you will. There's no limit on users, typically for organizations up to 200 employees, full functionality. And again, there's a top end on transactions. So, you know, when we take on Elon Musk, we move to the enterprise edition. And this is where we do not have to move to tier one software. We got the full functionality, and Acumatica has added several resources to help with higher volumes, right? So the key thing to remember here is that really we're limited here by in each level by some transaction limitations and also functionality. But what of the functionality we receive at each of these levels, it is truly advanced functionality. How you process an accounts payable invoice in Essentials is exactly the same in the Enterprise Edition. So all the way along, you are not limited by functionality. So if we look at this in a different way, this diagram is in the licensing guide, and the spikes are on the outside are the different levels. We see another advantage of that, and that is the additions. So Acumatica bundles their modules into what they call additions. So if you're a manufacturer, you're going to get some advantage with the manufacturing edition, and that's available to you at the Essentials level and at the Select and at the Prime. So, you know, the obvious conclusion from all this is don't start with entry-level software on the one end. And on the other end of the circle here, when you get to be large, you can take advantage of the reserve resources in blue, dark blue there, and you don't have to move to tier one software. So really, this is, you know, the same ERP all the way through. Another reason that this works is security. Security is very important to all businesses, and you know, Acumatica really offers two levels of security. Application level, so you know, every system is able to view, create, and work in the system based on who they are securely with two-factor authentication. And then there's infrastructure security. So the system is built on Amazon Web Services. It's the best security in business, and the system is reliable. It's always up and running. And Acumatica is servicing thousands of customers, tens of thousands of users, and hundreds of millions of transactions, all without any security breaches. So what I want to do is just walk you through an example of a company that might benefit from this approach. And because we do so much work in the mining industry, I'm going to use a mining company as an example here. The key thing is this idea is going to apply if you're a small manufacturer, if you're a small retail outlet, if you are a small any kind of business, but I'm going to use mining because it illustrates things quite well. So mining companies have a very clear growth path, and it's called the mining life cycle. So here are the phases. In the exploration phase, mining companies are looking for gold or copper or other minerals. They literally have people in the field looking for that. They're flying planes with equipment on there to try to detect ore bodies. And then they assess that. They start to do drilling programs and determine, gee, is there enough, let's say, gold here? Is there enough to sustain a mine for 10 years, 15 years? Can I make money at this? If they determine that's the case, they move to the next phase. And while we might argue that a mining company is like a startup in the exploration phase, they're like a construction company in the development phase. So right away, you can see they're going to be moving to a need for more functionality. This is where they build the mine and they start to get ready for production. And then when they're in operations, that's when we're really talking about things happening here. One of my clients talks about the mining operation as you know, boom, crush, squirt, and extract. And that's kind of a nice way to say, look, that's how mining companies work. In an open pit, they blast, they take that material to the crusher, they mill it, and they extract, let's say, gold. There's a lot that goes on there, and the requirements are really extensive for advanced functionality. And at the end of it, mines don't last forever. They go on for years, producing all the stuff that we're benefiting from today, like the chairs we're sitting on, or the computers we're looking at, and the green energy supplies that mining companies produce. But at the end of it, they have to put the property back to where it was before they showed up. So I'm going to talk about growth. So I'm going to talk about the first 3 phases in this example here. So let's look at the exploration phase. And we'll look at that with what most companies do when they're small. They buy entry-level software. Okay. First column talks about requirements. The second column is saying, look, in the exploration phase, what do you need? And then does entry-level software cover it? For sure. 10 users or even more, basic accounting, no problem, basic accounts payable. All of these things are easily handled by entry-level software. So at first blush, it's perfect. But then you get the reality, and reality bites, as they say. Mining companies are often multi-company. That's how they're organized. They're usually public companies. And this is where entry-level software starts to have limited functionality. Although there's a small number of fixed assets, there might be some need for sophisticated data management for mining companies. Project accounting becomes important, and it's really limited in entry-level software, but the needs are there. And workflow, again, public companies have to have segregation of duties. So workflow has to be, maybe limited at exploration phase, but it's still there, and there's not enough functionality in entry-level software. So as you would expect, I'm going to tell you that the Acumatica Essentials level fits in perfectly here. So it's no better in terms of users. It's got a limitation of 10, but in every other area, you have advanced functionality. So, it's a great fit in this area, and there's some key points, right? I've just listed the common requirements. There's tons more that you can add. You can add purchase orders, inventory, shipping, manufacture, etc. There's a lot that can be added at this level. Secondly, is that if your company doesn't move beyond 10 named users and a higher number of transactions, you can stay on this edition for a really long time, because the limitations and functionality with entry-level software are gone. You're now using advanced software, and if the user count stays small and the transactions stay small, you can stay right here. But in every single case, the functionality that you see is advanced. It's the same stuff that you're getting at enterprise level, with certain functionality, certain capabilities removed, but the core functionality is advanced, sophisticated stuff. So the functionality gap gets solved with this approach. But let's say our company grows. They're now, just to summarize, if we look at the 2 growth scenarios, if we look at entry level versus Acumatica, you start off with pretty low initial cost in entry level, but with Acumatica, it's a little bit more. Limited functionality versus advanced functionality, you outgrow entry level and you never grow Acumatica. And you've got convertophobia with entry level and nothing but love on the Acumatica side. And what do I mean by advanced? Well, some examples of advanced functionality. Let's just look at general ledger. With entry-level software, it's pretty limited. With Acumatica, you've got financial ledgers, you've got a budget ledger, or budget ledger is statistical. So you can put in some things like quantities, which is very important to mining companies. Reclassifications is very, very powerful in Acumatica. There's access to many ISVs at the essentials level. AP document processing comes with the software, so you don't have to manually type in accounts payable documents. You can do up to 50 of those a month included. Expense management similar. So there's lots of advanced functionality. Okay, but you may still, our mining company has now moved beyond 10 users and they need some more functionality, so we want to move up, right? So why would we do that? Well, okay, more than 10 users. Remember, the only level of Acumatica that's user constrained is essentials. Once you're past 10, it's unlimited users. Transactions. So Acumatica calculates transactions in a really, really, really simple way. We take all of these transactions and they say, what's the highest number in any month? That's my monthly commercial transaction limit. With the essentials, it's up to 2,000. And you'll see the other ones, 5,000 to 20,000 to over 20,000. Then the last consideration for moving up is specific functionality. Okay, I want to increase the number of inventory items and assets. Only the higher levels have got seasonal increases where you can say, look, I only have this level of transactions, but in the summer it goes up. Well, I can have a reduced fee for just those months to move up to a higher level in the higher levels of Acumatica. Okay. So my mining company example, they say, look, I want to move to select. Here's why. I want to have multiple financial currencies in my companies. There's a reason. Functionality is not available in Essentials, but it is in the next level. Maybe I want more advanced distribution planning. I want more employees on my payroll. So those are all good reasons, and we can move to select. And all we need to do is change the license, right? So what's not required is any data conversion. You don't have to do anything different with data conversion. All the stuff that you're currently doing, you keep doing. You don't have to have training on the current functionality. You're not reinventing the wheel. There's no different user interface, and those reluctant users don't have to change. They're using the software as before. Okay, so I think you understand the general theme that we're getting at here. When would you move to Prime? Well, there's some functionality that you might be looking for, integration with Exchange, advanced authentication beyond what the powerful authentication that's already there. And Acumatica Flex is one of the reasons to move. If you do a lot of customization, you may want to be able to have a lot more control over when you move to a new version, and Acumatica Flex gives you that. Again, no conversion, right? Same idea. It's just a change in licensing. And then at the very, very top end, really what we're talking about here is scalability. Okay, so we're often asked about how does Acumatica work for a very large organization? Well, it works extremely well, because what Acumatica does is they provide extra resources for a higher volume of transactions. So SaaS reserved resources, things like transaction boost, parallel processing, and concurrencies can really help with high transaction volume. Processing nodes are used really mostly for background processes like OData pulls or web API requests or scheduled processing. That's available as well. You can also, if you really want to go on the top end, you can get a dedicated server just for you. So dedicated SaaS, it can be added. Permanent sandboxes for your development environment can be available, and increased data storage. And lastly, licensing methods. So Acumatica uses consumption-based licensing, so they don't penalize you when you want to add 10, 20, 30 more users on the system. There's no extra cost if your transactions are within the limits of that level. Now, in rare circumstances, you're going to have really high transaction volumes and very low user count. So that sounds backwards, but this is where you start to see the flexibility of Acumatica, how they run their company. In those rare circumstances, user-based pricing is available. So from the very beginning, with entry level, Acumatica fits quite well. All the way through the growth of an organization, Acumatica fits really well. So, I started off with the assumption that we want to grow. I gave you some statistics about the fact that not everybody does this willingly, and they kind of take a plan that's not necessarily that good. So I brought us to the logical conclusion that Acumatica is really the perfect ERP from startup to enterprise. And that's my presentation. I'd be very happy to chat with anyone who has any questions. Please feel free to reach out. And if there's no questions right now, we're done. So thank you very much for attending. And it was great talking with you.